what I hope through DMC, what we do is help DJs progress the art form.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Keep it alive, but also progress it, you know? And now with, you know, so many other DJ battles falling to the wayside,
Right.
DMC is, you know, one of the only ones still standing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, we hope to continue and just keep finding innovative ways to make battles for the DJs, because without them entering, we don't have anything.
What's up? This is Rebel Radio.
What up, what up? This is DJ Newmark.
This is Peanut Butter Wolf.
It's your boy. It's okay.
Keep checking out Rebel Radio.
Rebel Radio.
This is Rebel Radio.
We're in the place right here. Rebel Radio is going down.
Would you say Rebel Radio?
Oh, wait. Let's do it again.
Rebel Radio.
What's up, Rebels? Welcome back to Rebel Radio, the weekly show where I bring you the rebels who are shaping our culture. I'm your host, Josh Levine. My guest this week is Christie Zee. I've known Christie for many, many years. She is a multi-talented, multifaceted entrepreneur. She's responsible for the Tools of War newsletter, which for a long time brought us news and happenings related to old school hip hop. She's also a publicist to a lot of the old school DJs and artists. She also organizes the Crotona Park Jams, kind of bringing that old school, the origins of hip hop into our current time. And lastly, she's the CEO of DMC USA, organizing battles of some of the world's best DJs all over the world. She's got some great stories. Really, you know, the lessons from her is about going for it without necessarily the experience to slow you down. Just stepping up and making it happen. I love some of those stories, how she's done that. She's also gives us a little bit of insight into how she's innovating the concept of DJ battles for the 21st century, and as well as, you know, how she sells people on her vision, sometimes enforcing her vision, and, you know, when to be maybe a little more heavy-handed and when to be a little more laid back. It's a great interview. I hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it with Christie Zee. Well, thanks for doing this. I'm excited to talk to you. It's like I said, it's been a while, and you know, I've been admiring your career for a long time. So I want to get into your history and the things you've seen and learned along the way. But I always like to start at the beginning. So do you remember the first record you ever bought for yourself?
I was buying 45s, you know, of like whatever rock and easy listening before as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't remember which I bought for myself first, but my first 12-inch was probably Planet Rock or Renegades of Funk, you know,
Sure.
from the local mall.
Yeah, of course. That's when you used to go to the mall and get your records.
It was amazing.
Amazing.
I missed that.
Yeah, there's something to be said for that whole process of trying to find music and get it before it was sold out, and, you know, be the first one on your crew or your block to have it and all that stuff.
Well, we weren't that down, so it was just me and my girlfriend Rhonda buying records that we wanted to listen to. We just didn't realize that other girls weren't really buying 12 inches or pursuing hip hop as actively as we were. We had no idea what other girls were doing.
Sure.
I wonder if we were just the strange ones at National Record Mart too. Like, what's up with these two girls always in the hip hop section?
Was there a time when you realized, I mean, you must have been at the jams and, you know, it's mostly guys. But was there a moment when you sort of realized that, you know, that made you different?
Yeah, well, you know, we always knew it made us different in our little small town, but yeah, when we went to local parties or what have you, you know, the small little hip hop events that might happen in a country area, we were the only two from our town there, and often we were some of the only white people too, and we just dove in head first because we didn't think there was anything. We thought it was universal because of the back of that Renegades of Funk album and the
Sure.
and the description of Zulu Nation and everything. We were, in our minds, we were convinced that we could go to the Bronx and get down with Zulu Nation, and there'd be no problems, and everybody would accept us, and it'd be like a happy hip hop universal community.
That's so funny.
All
so
from the
funny.
back of that album.
Right?
I know I mean, it eventually worked, but it wasn't that easy, and it was.
Yeah. So what
it was a lot
happened?
of
So
Go ahead.
you're from out of Pittsburgh, right?
outside of Pittsburgh, right between Pittsburgh and Morgantown, West Virginia. So
Okay.
it's very much the sticks.
Mhm.
And so any hip hop that we got, we had to work hard for, or, before we could even drive, campaign our mothers to drive us to the mall to see B-boys, or, just anything, drive us to the under 21 dance events.
Mhm.
We worked really hard for it.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I think that working for it is like it's a good way to really build that attachment to it,
Yeah.
because not just hand it to you, right?
No, we had to stay up late and record the 1 or 2 hours of hip hop that would play on Sunday night on the radio, like just so we had something to be aware of for the next week. Work really hard, like just bother friends who had cousins that might have sent them a K-Day mixtape. Like that was everything. And so like it's our friend Bosco from Uniontown, his cousin gave him a K-Day mixtape. So then we would try to get a copy of that and listen to that forever. It's fascinating. Yeah.
For sure. So how'd you end up in New York and finding yourself in the hip hop community there?
Well, in Pittsburgh, I started throwing little parties, and I would have DJ Swamp come in and spin for me. And I went to visited New York for a Rocksteady anniversary one year and was really inspired by that. And then I guess the following year, I was living in New York. Like I just made it happen, and didn't have much money to move there or anything.
Sure.
But just was like, I felt like I did everything I could in Pittsburgh that I wanted to do. And I was working in mental health with juvenile delinquent girls.
Oh, wow.
And I could easily take that, degree and take it to New York and work in mental health there. So that's what I did. Worked at some gyms, worked in mental health. And then DJ Swamp introduced me to the owner of DMC, Tony Prince. And so pretty much within a year and a half, I was working at DMC, and no resume or anything. I just talked Tony into hiring me. Mostly, I think he hired me for selling, all the VHS tapes and split mats and stuff we had. Okay. But then I got the icing on the cake was I got to throw the battles, and I could sell. I'm good at selling, but the battles was what I really wanted to do. So. I got my best job.
Amazing.
With no resume, no college degree. Like, I don't know, I probably paid off a student loan for $25,000 for a degree that I don't really use.
Of course. Of course.
As most of us have.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's amazing. Obviously you talk to young people, they complain about, they can't get a job without the experience or the, what's on the resume and all that. And I think, it's back to what we were talking about at the beginning. It's that hustle, right? It's like, I think it's that belief that no one's going to hire you that stops people from hiring you. I was the same, I was lucky that never occurred to me. You know what I mean? I didn't realize I even had to overcome that. I was like, of course you're going to hire me. I'm here.
Exactly.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, no one else wants to do this job. Put me on.
Exactly. Yeah, that's great. We can all learn from that. Does that lesson still come up? I mean, obviously now you're, hugely experienced and you've done it all, but does that still come up for you that, like, it doesn't matter if you've done it before or not?
Yeah, I wonder. Well, I guess I'm in positions where the work that comes to me is based on what I do. So I don't really have to worry so much about that. There might be an occasional, jam or some kind of event that's a little bit outside of my territory that I want to do and might not get the opportunity, but whatever, it's not meant to be then, you know what I mean?
Sure.
But I get so many other opportunities or make opportunities for myself that the only thing I'm usually annoyed with, like, well, especially in New York throwing park jams, was getting blocked from some park manager that didn't feel like having your event at their park. And
Of course.
you're not just doing it for the park manager. There's a whole community that's like waiting for this event, and a park manager that just doesn't feel like it can shut your shit down, or a cop that doesn't want to give you a sound permit. But the interesting thing is, it was park managers way more times than it was ever cops. The community affairs division, or whatever, the police that give you the sound permits, were usually cool. And the parks were the harder ones. I can't tell you how many times I cried over park managers just putting a wrench in my program and making me have to fight and go around and call connections. And it's silly. Like, the people of New York that live in these communities, especially in Harlem or the Bronx or Spanish Harlem, they have no idea what they're not getting because of a park manager. It's wild.
That's crazy. I mean, it's also not surprising, right? That, like, those people want to flex. That's their little kingdom, and they want to rule it however they want to rule it. And you know, I get it. I mean, I think it's you know, it's unfortunate, but you know, I had this same, you know, I've had similar experiences where you're like, well, shit, I've done all these things, and now this one small little thing with this dude is just gonna stop me from, you know.
Yeah,
it is sometimes.
Like we did a b-boy battle. Fable and I did a b-boy battle at Lollapalooza with Maddie Silver. I'm sure you know Maddie.
Yeah, of course.
And that was like this giant thing we did. But then I can't get a park in Spanish Harlem between 4 and 8 p.m. on Thursday.
Right.
Like,
yeah, sure.
It's maddening.
I bet.
Yeah.
I bet. Okay, so back to kind of finding your way in New York. By the way, I was at Zulu Anniversary, the 25th, which I think was 94. If I remember correctly. Me and Raymond went out there. And that was when, you know, I was already deep into hip hop and my career in hip hop, but that experience changed my life again, you know, to just be there in the Armory, you know, in the park, you know, seeing, you know, that was the closest I ever got to those jams in the Bronx or whatever that, you know, I was too young for. I was out here in the wrong part of the country. But you know, incredible.
Yeah, I didn't go to that one, but the first Zulu Anniversary I went to was, you know, probably in 96, you know, since I moved to New York in the summer. Zulu flyer came by, you know, went down to Fat Beats, looked for all the flyers, and saw that Zulu was coming up, and I didn't really know anybody or know where that was happening in Harlem. But I was like, I didn't move here for, you know, to miss these kind of opportunities.
Sure.
So yeah, I stomped my way through Harlem and and found it, and it was amazing. You know, the funny thing is that now I know how to read flyers. And in particular, Bambaataa would like to put Bootsy Collins, James Brown, and and Sly Stone on the flyers,
right, as
a tribute.
Right.
But if you don't know how to read the flyer, you don't know that those three are not going to be there. You know what I mean? So or George Clinton's not going to be there either. I mean, maybe sometimes someone might be. But yeah, so I learned to read flyers, especially old school flyers where they'll just put everybody on the flyer and you have to try to dissect who will be there.
No, I get it. I remember we used to put, you know, all the homies that would bring 10 people or whatever, put their names on the flyer. So you get them to work for free. You know, of course. So that's the tricks.
That's nice. I never did that. I just was like, if there's 3 DJs on the flyer, at least, you know, with the Tools of War Jam, that's exactly who's performing. Like, no fillers, no opening acts, no closing, no MCs, just 3 DJs all night.
Yeah. When did that vision for Tools of War come together? Was that the plan from the beginning, or like obviously now, it stands for, something, a real part of this culture. Having done, I don't know how many jams you've done, but
Oh man,
it's a
years of
lot.
jams.
Yeah.
Fable and I met at that Zulu anniversary, the first one I went to, and we eventually got married. And since now we're like best friends, but we're not together now. Just so that's clear. So anyway, he and I, he would tell me about the jams that he went to back in the day, whether they were on a beach or in a park or whatever. And I would be near tears at, what they sounded like and how wonderful they might have been. And so it wasn't our plan from the beginning. Like he made Tools of War as a means to sell, archival vintage clothing or belt buckles and different things he wanted to sell. And then I took it and turned it into a newsletter, the newsletter was basically my picks for the week of things that were going on and I still find it to this day, it's a problem, even though I don't do the newsletter. People don't tell each other what's going on. So you and I might be talking right now, and I might know the most fantabulous thing going on right where you live, like next door, and I don't bother to tell you. So I was furious that I was missing great shows. And so I set about to like digging and finding these events that we could all be together as a community for. So the Tools of War newsletter built up, and eventually I worked with Lord Finesse before. He said, hey, this group in the park, Friends of Crotona Park in the Bronx, wants to have some little, performances before their hip hop movie series. And I told them I don't have time, so I wanted to introduce you to them. And so Lord Finesse basically gave me to Friends of Crotona Park for the work he didn't really have patience to do. And that's how the Park Jam started, where, we had a whole bunch of legends just doing like brief performances. And then the movie started. And then the following year, they got rid of the movie series and kept the Park Jams. And then we built from there with the support of helpful Parks people at the time, including, this is really cool. So Lord Finesse's DJ, Mike Smooth, is high up in the park system. And at that time, he was at Crotona Park. And he was so super helpful and has been my mentor ever since for park events and getting through the red tape. So yeah, there's hip hop heads within the system too that could be very helpful. So yeah, we stayed doing Crotona Park from 2003 on, and probably till about 2019, I think, was our last jam. And then we expanded, like sometimes we would do Queens at the invitation of the Parks Commissioner. Like she was really supportive, Dorothy Lewandowski, but then you'll find another Parks Commissioner that will shut you down, So Dorothy would invite us out to Queens, roll out the red carpet for us. But then in the Bronx and Harlem, we'd still be struggling and, fighting for our right to party.
Sure.
So yeah, and we did Digger's Delight in Harlem at St. Nicholas Park, where only the DJs could not play anything familiar whatsoever or recognizable. They had to pull out the rarest, digginest stuff they had. And if you played a classic party rocking set, like a crowd pleasing set, I would be so furious. Like I couldn't even understand why DJs wouldn't like follow the direction. And some DJs get weird, like, well, I'm losing the crowd. And I'm like, we're dictating what the audience is going to be here. Like there's no money to be made at a park jam. So it doesn't matter if the crowd leaves, like the right people will come. And eventually you'd have like a crowd full of like Lord Finesse, Large Pro, Biz, any who's who that came in and they wanted to hear what everybody else was digging so that when they spun, they'd be ready, And so Crotona Park Jams was the classic party rockin', only legends on the lineup. Legendary DJs, but if you were an MC/DJ, you could be on too, but mostly it was just DJs, and with Kaz hosting. And we did a Spanish Harlem Hop, which was more open format, but still, true school. We tried to keep it clean, be very picky about what DJs we put on. Eventually we'd have some clashes with some DJs that are considered popular. So then we like said, we're only putting on DJs that are our favorite DJs that are our friends. So that like settled that down too, you know what I mean? Because you don't, when you're doing a park jam and there's really no money to be made, you don't want to be dealing with the diva egos, you
Right.
know. Nobody's getting paid enough for that. So we figured out ways to cut that problem out as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love that. That's good. That's good problem solving.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And also, like just working with DJs and not MCs, because, it takes a certain character to be an MC.
Mhm.
And and to be that front person and to be that confident. And sometimes the MC would take over a show. So the only way an MC could get on at Crotona Park would be if the DJ allowed it.
Right.
So I would even ask the DJs in advance, like, hey, do you want anybody on your set? And they'd say no. Then when their MC came over to me like, oh, Theodore wants me on the lineup. I'm like, he said he did it. So I'd be ready for that too. And those are tricks of the trade. Like you find out, you learn people's MOs in advance so that you can block it. Because you don't want an awkward situation where you stop someone from getting on the mic that someone actually did want.
Right.
But most of the time the DJs do not want help on the mic.
Mm.
They just want to rock their set. Yeah. Why would you want to be the background person?
Right. It's interesting. And I think, I promoted clubs for a long time, and it took me a while to learn that like your job is to really, it's not just about getting people in the building so they can drink, right? It is very much about shaping the experience that people have from the moment they get a flyer until, the next day when they woke up and said, man, that was an amazing night.
Exactly.
And and we forget about that, or it took me a while at least to learn that you gotta make some of those hard decisions and enforce them, and really know that you're taking people on a journey, even to what you're saying about the set list, right? That you can understand why somebody wants to drop Celebrate in the middle of a set, because everyone's gonna lose their minds because they know the song, but if that's not the experience you're creating.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad someone else understands it.
Well, look, I mean, I love all kinds of DJs. I think sometimes it's fine that they're just playing, the hits or whatever, right? Like, but I especially appreciate those DJs who like they're taking you on a journey and they have a vision. And I think, when it's done right, it's like, it's like I can sit back and just enjoy myself and not worry about it, right? Like you feel like you're in good hands.
Yeah. And with the professional, well, with someone that actually listens, but a lot of DJs will not read an email that you wrote to them or follow the theme. Like it's like one time we set up at Crotona Park and there was a legendary DJ that I wasn't really cool with him, but he found me at an event, begged me to put him on. Mm-hmm. So I put him on, and I don't think he expected to be going first either, but we rotated DJs. But here's the deal, with 4 hours and everybody's a headliner, everybody's a legend, someone's going to have to go first. So anyway, Theodore told him to Theodore told him to set up. And he was like, but nobody's here yet. And Theodore's like, don't worry, because people just come out of anywhere. Like maybe they're waiting in cars, I don't know. But just like all of a sudden, whoosh, there's a giant audience. So he gets on and I must not have been background listening like I normally do. But Theodore comes over and he's like, he's playing Drake. And I was just so distraught because you weren't supposed to play anything past like early 80s. And how is Drake? So this guy never read any emails. His quote manager never communicated anything. Yeah. And he showed up with his typical set list that he probably had programmed on Serato. And it was heartbreaking. Mm-hmm. And I knew he was better than that. I just didn't understand why he was doing it. And it was because he just didn't read or follow directions and keep with the theme. And I'll say this, a lot of DJs have no idea, how many gigs they might lose because they can't stick to a theme. I'm not going to recommend that. You know what I mean?
Right. Sure.
Like I could find any DJ to play top 40. Like, that's not even special to me. How you mix it could be, but that wasn't even special here. But it was hysterical that Theodore came over like, dude's playing Drake. I'm like, ah. At an old school jam.
That's great. Yeah. But you know, like I said, you can understand why, right? Because people love Drake, right? And
some people.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, people. Like, you know, you get you know, DJs get reinforced, they get positive reinforcement, right?
Yeah.
And it's easy sometimes to play to the crowd instead of lead the crowd.
Yeah. But I'm saying you can't advertise that you're having a true school jam.
Yeah, of course.
That's not even so yeah, so I've had heartbreaking incidents like that where, especially if someone this is wild too. So I might get a DJ from Japan that's super dope, but his handlers wouldn't have told him what the theme was.
Yeah.
Right. And then I'll be like, why is he playing Planet Rock at Diggers Delight? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
So yeah, you have to deal with it, but it's hard. It's hard to keep your cool when your vision is going off to the side, you know?
Yeah.
Or someone decides to do a DMC routine, even though they never battled before, they decide to do a DMC routine at your Diggers Delight. Right. Completely uncalled for. Like, dude, you didn't even enter DMCs and now you're auditioning here in my park.
That's hilarious.
I know.
So talk about the DMC. You know, I've always been fascinated with DMC. Partly that, I mean, obviously it's keeping this part of the art, the culture alive, or I don't know if it's keeping it alive, but it's, you know, it's bringing it to a world stage. How, you know, comes out of the UK, which we always, at least, you know, we tend to think of hip hop as an American art form. And I think now, you know, we see that it's truly global, but it really has been, right? DMC started in the 80s, right?
Yeah, they started in the 80s, but the battles didn't start until 85. Like, they started as what, quote, disco mix club. Like, they made these cool records with mashups and mixes on them the DJs could play. And as they subscribed to the, you know, the program. And so 85, they threw a battle, and it was a mixing battle. And so it wasn't until closer to 86 when DJ Cheese from the US won as a special invite, since it wasn't like a come one, come all DJ battle yet. DJ Cheese was invited and came through and, you know, did a turntablist set. And that set the stage for where DMC would go. And I give credit for them, because for me, sticking to a theme is important. So if I was dedicated to having a mixing battle, you know, would a turntablist win? Tony Prince, the founder, is very open-minded to allow the battle to develop organically and go where it wants to go. Like, if it becomes an EDM battle, he's down. Like, he's so more open-minded than myself in allowing that to go. But I'm really happy that it stays turntablism, even though DJs use all different kinds of music now. But yeah, 85 was the first battle, and I believe the winner was Roger Johnson from the UK. And you can find there's no video, but you can hear audio of it, and it was pretty dope, you know, if you look on YouTube.
Nice. Yeah, so, you know, to me, that's interesting that you know, this is, again, I you know, at least I forget that this has been a global culture now for 3 decades, right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
And that, you know, now DMC is all over the world. And I think, you know, I think some of the innovation, I just saw the 9-year-old girl, I forget her name.
Michelle
from Dubai, right? Who took 14th and is incredible. I watched the video and it's like,
yeah, the judges aren't just handing out scores. I was really happy that she placed in the top 20, which gets her 1-minute elimination round on our live stream. But the cool thing was her dad advanced. Like, and normally you never hear about her dad because she gets all the attention.
Of course.
You know, of course. So her dad advanced in the top 10. So DJ
Right.
Shock is in there. And I'm really happy about our judges too, because like, you know, some people would say, oh, well, you're going to be politically correct and include women, or you're going to be politically correct and, or go for the PR and get a kid, you know, but we have no control over what the judges pick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I pick the judges, but I don't pick the DJs, you know?
Right.
So we send the scores, we send a playlist to the DJs, and they send me back their top 3 or their top 10 or whatever. And so I'm just as surprised as anybody else when I get the scores, you know, and then sometimes I don't agree. Sometimes I feel like a judge might've missed somebody or, you know, whatever, but it's really cool that I have this international community of DJs from, you know, everywhere, like Japan, France, England, you know, who else judges? Canada, wherever there's a world champion, they could judge.
Right.
And so this year, I'll say this year was my first year organizing DMC World Battles. And we introduced 8 categories from, let's say, April through December. And there's several new battle categories that DJs have been like demanding, like beat juggling and all scratch battle. Portablism had already been happening. We're brought back teams. We're doing an all vinyl battle, which should be really interesting because there's a bunch of people that complain all the time on DMC's social media. They write stuff like, yeah, but what if you just didn't have Serato, or, you know, blah, and they call people button pushers. It's really it's really dismissive of DJs, especially world champions that probably did come up on vinyl, but you're talking as if you're the vinyl pro. Right. You know what I mean? I assume that it's something trolls make themselves, like it makes trolls feel good to write this stuff. But anyway, someone said that us throwing an all vinyl battle was me trolling, but like trolling back. But funny. Here's the deal. Will people enter? You know what I mean? Like, and then that all vinyl champion advances to the world finals. So even the people that fell off from watching DMC and hate Serato and hate everything will have at least one DJ they can watch.
Sure.
At the world level. And then there's a foundation battle, which is basically a throwback battle. You could think anything from the year winning sets around 2000 on back. Of funky foundational musicality, originality. Almost like, you know, the Return of the DJ series where, you know, if you listen to volume 1, you could practically sing along with it. And you want to hear it over and over again. And so this foundation battle discourages pre-production, so that because that's been a growing trend, right? And it might be the result of the pre-production might be that winning sets are really, really extra technical, and they might have alienated some fans in the process. So the foundation battle, I hope, will bring back, you know, the funky flavor that's sometimes missing. Not all the time missing, but sometimes I wish things were a little more funky. And so anyway, we have like a full schedule of DJ battles this year. And just with the Portablist battle alone, we had DJs from places that I'd never seen before, like Nepal, Myanmar. That DJ actually used his platform to talk about what's going on there too. So that was kind of dope. That's cool. Just so many different DJs from across the world just want to scratch on a portable turntable. And there was 85 entrants for that. And I didn't expect this, but the next battle was beat juggling. We had 107 entrants for that one from all over the world. Wow. And so, so the next battle that launches is all vinyl. So I don't know where that's going, but I think the scratch battle will be like extra, a lot of DJs. I don't know how we're going to sort through everybody. Like to get a judge to judge 107 videos was hard.
That's a lot. Absolutely.
So, but it's beautiful because it's what I hope through DMC, what we do is help DJs progress the art form.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Keep it alive, but also progress it, you know? And now with, you know, so many other DJ battles falling to the wayside,
Right.
DMC is, you know, one of the only ones still standing.
Mhm.
And so, you know, we hope to continue and just keep finding innovative ways to make battles for the DJs, because without them entering, we don't have anything. So the battles have to be angled towards them.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. And you know, I think you know, it's probably me not really paying attention, but you know, my perspective was that for many years, you know, Qbert and Scratch Pickles had really like taken the art form as far as it was going to go at that time, right? And you know, I didn't see, again, I wasn't maybe watching closely enough, but I didn't see people really doing something, you know, revolutionary on top of what they brought to it. But I think that's different now. I think the technology, you know, again with the, you know, the all the, you know, the buttons on the mixers and the portable turntables, right? Like all the technology has opened up the creativity for people to now, you know, keep pushing that art form.
The only thing I think is weird, and I don't necessarily understand it, was people, you know, people that don't battle were so mad when Serato digital vinyl system was allowed in the battle. Okay, that was 2011. Vajra won. Now he's known as Chris Carnes. He's DJs with Pretty Lights.
Yep.
And so Chris won, and no one was really mad at his set, and no one called him a button push or anything. Like, they liked everything about his set, but they still hated that Serato was allowed. And the funny thing since is that when, you know, I throw battles with all the movie, with all the clips from movies you could use, all the sayings, all the excellent things you can grab and put in your program. I'm just shocked that with all the music available and everything, the DJs don't seem to really be taking advantage of what the DVS allows. You know what I mean? Like, there's a million great disses that DJs aren't using. Like, there's a million songs that DJs aren't messing with. Like, it's so interesting to me why, but I guess to each his own or her own, you know.
Yeah, and I think, look, I get, you know, people we're resistant to change, right? And I know, you know, how many DJs, you know, didn't like CDs, didn't like Serato, that now, you know, love it and you know, rely on it and couldn't, you know, wouldn't want to go back.
No, they don't want to carry those crates.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, and here's the thing, at a club, like at a regular club where you're just party rocking, who really cares if you're using a controller or turntables? Like, it's a nice look when you see someone using turntables in a mixer. But if it's not really required, or it's a lot of extra lugging around, you know, when you could just put a controller in your backpack and still play the greatest stuff for people to dance to, there's a time and a place to be an equipment snob. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like park jams, definitely, we always wanted turntables, and of course DMC, but regular party rocking, nightclub stuff, there's no need to be that, you know, purist about it. You know,
I agree. And even, you know, I mean, the first time I met Apollo, which was back in the 90s, right? He said to me, like, you should be able to listen with your eyes closed.
Nice. Yeah.
And you know, and it's still got to work, right? And I think that's ultimately, yeah, it's great to watch people and see the crazy shit they're doing with their hands or whatever, but you know, it's music.
Exactly.
And so what it sounds like is most important.
Exactly. Selection is I think selection is everything. And whatever you need to do to have your selection available, which DVS helps, because you know, I've seen Red Alert, you know, travel with crates and crates, and then stuff started getting expensive, like charging you per luggage and stuff.
Oh yeah, of course.
And you know, TSA is not to be trusted for like not stealing records and different things like that too.
Yeah, I mean, we both know people whose records didn't show up, they didn't make it in time for the gig. There's all kind of horror stories.
Exactly. So this is saving DJ gigs across the world. And now the new technology being phased is really interesting because they're like Z-Trip said this about them, that they're basically saving his gigs because he does require turntables, you know, when he shows up. But a lot of times you show up to a club and they tell you that they have Technics 1200s in perfect working order, but it's a giant lie.
Yeah.
And someone spilled stuff on them or whatever.
Sure.
So with this needleless technology, Phase allows you to still use your Technic 1200s without all the hiccups and everything else that you might get, or without having to take it apart.
I don't even know about that.
Yeah, check it out. It's PHASE. I'm not even affiliated with them. They're not my sponsor. It's just technology I'm talking about.
They should be.
Yeah. Well, God willing, one day, you know, it's slowly but surely. It took them a while to get out, and now they've teamed up with Serato. So things are very promising. But yeah, they're saving a lot of gigs on some janky turntables, you know, for
Incredible.
DJs who want to use 1200s and stuff.
Right. Yeah, that's incredible. How did you you talked about Tony being pretty flexible, and I think we get from you that you're much more focused. So tell me about like how, when you got involved in DMC USA and sort of started to develop your vision, and then how do you work with Tony to sort of make his vision work and make yours work, and how's that relationship work?
Well, I first worked with him from 98 through 2000 as an employee of DMC, and we had an office in New York, you know, right by the Flatiron building. And then I left for a while and came back in 2008. And with 2008 on, I was a DMC branch manager with no office, no, you know, just kind of a fixer-upper.
Yeah.
And so in the late 90s, it was more challenging with Tony because he had his vision, I had my vision. He made a mixing battle, you know, whereas my aim was to try to, you know, keep it more hip hop oriented.
Turntablist, yeah.
Yeah. And so, but since that time, you know, like after I left DMC for a little bit, I did the Allies All-Star Beatdown. I did Zulu battles. I did a vinyl combat battle with Shore Rain and Serato. Like just, I can make up battles. I have a ton of themes. So I did that. But 2008, taking DMC back and having control of what I did with DMC USA was good. And then Tony, more relying on me like a consultant, you know what I mean? So I had more say in what was going to happen, to the point where it's, you know, in late 2020, he, you know, asked me, I guess maybe in January, he saw the productions we did for DMC last year online. Like they were like full TV shows with Qbert Scratchy Seal hosting and different things. We had commercials, we had showcases, you know, even people who didn't follow DJ battles enjoyed it.
That's
so
great.
he saw our production and wanted that for this year. And and so from everything from major sponsors on down, I have like a lot of say, and my opinion is respected. And even convincing them to add this many battles on, because, you know, a lot of people did have cold feet about that. We're like, oh, I don't know if it's going to work, and how many people really want to, you know, enter a portablist battle or be juggling battles. So like, I'm really happy that it was even more than I thought.
Yeah.
And the sponsors, you know, we have Pioneer DJ, we have Rain, we have Techniques, we have Virtual DJ now for the first year. And so it's looking good. It's looking very promising. And I'm so happy that we do have companies that understand what we're doing and the support we get. So yeah, so in Tony's case, I think he's sat back a little bit and let me take the wheel, and he'll just tell me to make lefts and rights, or, you know, curve up ahead if we need to. And he's pretty gangster too. I'm pretty amused. Like the other day, he just made up a new rule. And I was like, that wasn't in the rules. He's like, yeah, but we could make up new stuff. And so he made some new things that were really cool. And so I was like, oh, cool. You know, and it's cool to have a 76 or 77-year-old you're collaborating with him, and he has great ideas about the battle. Like, what other senior citizens are spending time thinking about the nuances of turntablism? It's fascinating.
It's incredible. Yeah.
I know. And he's been doing it all these years. So it's kind of like you're working with an industry veteran, that was around back in the new music seminar days. He knows Tom Silverman. He knows everybody. I think one time when I was at the DMC office and we were like answering phones in 98, 99, 2000, David Geffen called for him. And I was like, it's probably the most popular person I've ever spoken to on the phone that didn't call for me,
Right. Yeah.
And I'm like, great. Tony's a baller. Like he's well connected. It's interesting. On top of, and then on Saturdays, I'll listen to his radio show on his radio station, and he'll play like Elvis and oldies and stuff. And you get to actually hear, like, I didn't listen to Alan Freed back, I wasn't alive, but it's really fascinating to hear like an original pirate radio DJ that like spun on that ship, that England tried to sink. Like to actually hear how they played and how they hosted and how they like to sing over songs and make little catchphrases. Like it's all connected, like from the 50s DJs all the way up. It's fascinating to hear the approach and the fact that they'll play a whole song, which you don't really hear now in our generation. You'd be lucky if you heard 2 verses.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I'm absolutely learning.
For sure. So what is working with him or that? What have you learned about when to fight for something and when not to?
There was times where I'm like, he doesn't know this, so this will be the first time. Hopefully he isn't watching the interview. But there was a time in the late 90s where someone had the idea to add more categories that another battle was doing. And, that battle was also in the US, and I respected them, and I didn't want us to look like we were biting. So there were some elements that I said, okay, head-to-head battle, nobody owns that.
Right.
Team battle could be anybody's. DMC was actually having team battles before teams were allowed. So like Qbert, Mike, and Apollo was a team that and I wasn't there at the time running DMC, but if I was a DJ from another country that had to battle those guys, like it's terribly unfair.
Of course.
to have to battle Qbert and Mike and Apollo as a team. Like, so DMC like said, okay, allegedly they said, oh, you guys can enter again, but as solos, not as a team. And that led to the whole DMC banned, them from competing because they were so good. And, the rumor went that way.
Yeah.
And I asked Tony about that. I was like, why would you ban them from competing? He's like, and he didn't even know about the rumor. He's like, I never banned them. Yeah. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. So anyway, there was the year that somebody from another DMC branch wanted to take some categories that some other competition had. I said, well, it was really bold because it really was my favorite job and I wouldn't have wanted to lose it. But I said, well, if you guys are going to do that, me and my assistant's Glenn Browski, I was like, me and Glenn Browski are out. And
wow.
And Glenn looked like, oh crap, like what are you? I finally have gainful employment and you're just going to ruin it. And they actually didn't go with it.
Good thing for Glenn.
Yeah, but it was a crazy bluff. But I felt strongly though, because I didn't want to get my integrity and my reputation. I didn't want to be affected by the appearance as if we were biting because another company had a successful run at those categories,
Yeah.
So it worked out. But yeah, he does take my advice a lot, and especially now with this year. So I'm really happy that he's this open-minded about my enthusiasm towards all these new categories, and and not just the DJ's responses, but also sponsorship interest is so crucial, because you could have a lot of great ideas and no sponsors,
right?
Which I've had. I'll do things without sponsors, like for the park jams. there wasn't, it wasn't like anybody was trying to market in the Bronx. You know what I mean? Like that, the demographic,
Right.
that's not happening with like your major companies like that are based in Japan or wherever. So what I did was a trade, and I'd say, okay, Rain, you give me 4 sets of something worth $500 each of gear. And then I pass that on to the DJ who spins for me. They get one $500 chunk of gear. It could be like short needles and microphones or whatever it is. The DJ gets that in return for their set. So that's why also it's more important that they go with the theme is I'm actually paying you in gear, and in mixers and in speakers and everything for you to do this. This isn't, when do you get paid $500 for a 1 hour set? Not often.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, especially when there's no money to be made at the door or anything. So that's what I did to return the favor to the DJs who took their time. So that was, I hope, and then that goes along with Tools of War, which is giving all the tools you need to DJ or all the tools you need to battle, putting them in your hands. So it kind of went in keeping with our theme.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Thinking about that, obviously, hip hop in the commercial sense is such big business. And, so much of it is about getting rich. And so, for youngsters that are coming up in the culture today, what do you see that's attracting young people to the underground?
It really might be their parents first, their parents' love of it.
Yeah.
Since you and I probably didn't grow up with hip hop parents like some kids are now,
Of course.
Like your parents are like, here, let me put you on to Needle to the Groove, and here's Mantronics, like no one's doing that for us.
No.
So these kids have access to all this music and all this backstory that we didn't. And some kids might love it. And especially with something dynamic like b-boying, b-girling, that's an easy one. Kids can fall all over the place and not get hurt, And so DJ is a little more technical since you have to have all this gear to start, you know what I mean? So that's more challenging, and most parents aren't going to buy.
Although less now. I mean, you mentioned virtual DJ, so my son, we have our 1200s in the living room, but he's got virtual DJ on his computer, and he can just mess around and do remixes, and it's amazing.
Exactly, and virtual DJ is like working with Qbert now. Like they have programs that might possibly appeal to the battle DJ now as well. So I've heard a lot of good things, just virtual DJ being a gateway drug for kids.
Incredible. Yeah.
It's amazing. So they could do stuff off their phone, but most parents will wait till their kid is like, let's say little Michelle. The dad probably had a setup, but any parent that doesn't have DJ gear would probably wait a little bit to see if their kid was actually serious about this. Like, it's too bad that they don't have that Gemini starter kit like they sold back in the day,
I remember that.
They should bring that back. And the Radio Shack mixer, like like if you really want to do this, you got to work hard for it. You got to build your crates.
Yeah, that's not the world we live in anymore, is it?
No, and I have to remind old timers, like when they get mad about the youth using digital vinyl systems. I'm like, these kids didn't even grow up with access to record stores like we had. Like there wasn't a record store everywhere you could go to. Like when I got DMC back in 2008 from 2000, oh man, like my whole store list was down to this. Like, like all the stores I used to sell to, it was heartbreaking, because especially after 9/11, that whole situation hit the economy so hard that people stopped sponsoring big money, just everything slowed down. And I feel like that, if anything, really hit the culture event-wise, and, in the, what just hit us so hard was that, just the economy crashing and no one ever being sure what was going to happen. So I think kids' parents are getting them into it, because I don't know necessarily where they access hip hop other places. But then, you'll watch Yo Gabba Gabba and you'll see Biz on there. You'll see B-boys, you know, like it's that's amazing. I watch Yo Gabba Gabba just for like my hip hop friends being on it, you know.
Nice.
Or one time our niece saw the story about Grand Wizard Theodore on Disney, and she repeated the story.
That's cool.
Yeah, she was like, Grand Wizard Theodore invented the scratch in 1975 when he was only 12 or so. And I was like, look at little Jasmine saying this, you know? So those little things, and I can't say what it is yet, but there's a really cool thing happening for the inventor of the scratch, Grand Wizard Theodore, that will also cement him in the minds of kids. So there's cool things happening because people like you and I are in places to make those things happen now.
Yeah.
You know? So
no, I love it. I just interviewed Rob Swift the other day, and you know, he's got his new his DJ school, you know, and I was talking to him about, like, you know, how do you convince people to work that hard, right, at something that you could do really easily with the push of a button, right? And I loved his answer was that, you know, it's all about the history. It's about connecting them to the stories and the tradition, right? And I think, you know, that's, you know, kind of to what you're saying, right? Is like, I think people want to be part of something.
Yeah.
Right. And this you know, to feel like there's a lineage and to dig into the stories, you know, of the pioneers or of the guys, you know, throughout the years at DMC who advanced the art form to the next level. Like, I think that's what, for me, that's what makes it more than just music, you know, sound coming out of a speaker.
Yeah, but it has to be available to the kids. Like, harder with DMC battles is when you go into a club and they don't allow all ages,
right?
You know, so there's some cities that wouldn't allow it, so it would be harder. Like a child DJ could enter as long as their guardian was with them at the club, but all ages just couldn't come to the club. So that was a lot harder. With the park jams, it was beautiful because, you know, the kids got to be there. They got to witness, you know, you see Cool Herc and Melly Mel and different people walking around, and Biz shows up and Flash shows up, cool stuff happening. And so you actually have like hip hop senior citizens with hip hop's youngest, you know, newest comers, let's say 1 and 2 year olds or something. And the kids get to see B-boys and B-girls and different other things, and they get inspired. So inevitably someone's little child will be trying to do some B-boy moves that they saw at the park. And all that is so crucial. That's why, like, now that God willing, we're putting the pandemic behind us and things are getting safer, it's so important to have actual live events where the community can get together, but especially where the youth can witness hip hop. Like, we did something here in Denver with Lord Finesse DJing, and OC came along just as a surprise.
Nice.
And people who bought, it wasn't a popular party because I think Denver missed a lot of hip hop. Yeah, it's maddening. Like, people were like, who's Lord Finesse? It's heartbreaking, you know, like, but we had a real, we had a really dope mountains. Yeah, we had a really dope party though. Asia One showed up and all kind of, you know, Ivan and different people were breaking, and Lord Finesse was there, and OC got on the mic because Lord Finesse had like some like he was just getting over a cough or a cold or something. So it was actually like one of my favorite hip hop moments since I've been here, of events I've done. And some people came up and they were like, wait, you know, probably like 21 or something. They were like, oh my God, you have to keep doing this. Like, I've never witnessed this before. Yeah. You know, and that's everything right there. That's
so cool.
In giving that, like, or when we saw people come to the Bronx, you know, the group, they're from France, from Marseille, called I Am. They're like, so anyway, one of the first years of Crotona Park, the park manager got, I forget what the name of the sponsor was, and they're a French company. And that's when park managers are really helpful, when they get sponsors. And the company wanted to bring in I Am. And so they brought I Am to the Bronx, and the people who were with them just broke down in tears. Like, they couldn't believe that there was Melly Mel. They were in the Bronx. They were like, you know, all the energy is there. And so when people break down and cry at the park jams, or even if I do, That's what it's all about. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'm creating what I missed. Really, essentially, that's my
right.
private party that you're welcome to come to. But this is my lineup of Bambaataa, Jazzy J, and Red Alert was one of my favorites. Another time, Cash Money, and these are the things you do for yourself too, and you don't see it coming. But Cash Money was DJing at the park, and I just felt I was like pacing, like I don't know what it was, but what was happening was I realized that afterwards he had Planet Rock playing, and then he started cutting over top of it, and like that to me was just everything. Like one of the most awesome DJs, one of the most awesome party rockers, one of my favorite songs, the best scratching. I was beside myself. Like, so there's times like that where you just break down and cry over the beauty of the culture.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
So, as you said, we're hopefully coming out of this pandemic. Tell me about, what's the future look like for you, for Tools of War, for DMC? What are you excited about if you look to the next year ahead?
Okay, well, I'll say this. I hope it's so easy to throw online battles that I hope I don't get spoiled. Like I don't have to lug gear in. I don't have to worry about prizes not being shipped. I don't have to worry about putting banners up. It shows.
I mean, obviously, I get it. It also, I would assume it's harder to make an engaging experience for people to watch.
Yeah, well, and I think that my team, Antrix from Battle Ave and I for DMC USA are doing that with the battles. And I've seen a lot of interesting ways people are making experiences, online. And so I would hope that in like this year, I'm not doing any live battles that I know of. So let's say for 2022, we do live battles where we're back in the clubs for at least regional DJ battles. And maybe the other stuff can go online so that still the world can participate. Because what about the DJ in Myanmar who doesn't have a DMC branch?
Right.
I want him to keep competing, and the DJ from Nepal. So in that way, I see online and live battles happening so the community can still get together. For the park jams, I will follow Fable's lead on that. If he wants to do stuff in New York City, I'm either behind him or go there and help, whatever he wants to do. He's been, integral in the park culture longer than I have,
Right.
And so, and he has great visions and, does a lot of cool stuff. So whatever he wants to do, I'm down for as Tools of War. And then, and then you never know what other opportunities are coming my way, with, like I said, as friends like you and I and our other friends of our same age and older get into key positions in places.
Absolutely.
What's going to happen, what opportunities are going to, who's going to get into some major media show, and put us on TV or something, Who knows?
No, I love it. Cool. Well, I got to do a quick lightning round before I let you get back to your life. What
hope I didn't
is your
keep you too long.
Oh, no, this is great.
Okay.
I love these stories and so much fun to hear it all. What's your favorite city to visit?
It's a cross between, New Orleans and San Francisco. Saying that I didn't live there though, like New York, of course, would be great to visit now that I don't live there.
Of course.
But New Orleans and San Francisco always.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in San Francisco, but New Orleans is such an incredible place to visit for sure.
Magic.
Yeah.
The way they've preserved the culture and the music and everything is, sometimes I'll just break down and cry over that. Like when I see something, beautiful that comes out of there, like a second line or something. And
it's incredible. I mean, there's something special about cities that are really driven by music. And, New York and San Francisco are both of those. I think New Orleans takes it to the next level. Like you said, it's just people in the streets, you walk down the street and you hear literally world-class drumming just coming from, across the way.
And the kids are learning instruments.
Yeah. Who is your favorite DJ?
Oh man. Okay. Okay, the reasons of favorite DJ are because of selection, of being a turntablist,
Mhm.
and party rocking. So in the case of that, I would, for those three categories that I have is very, very important, I would say DJ Cash Money.
Okay.
Yeah. But then otherwise, like for who has the playlist in my head that I
Mhm.
never told them about, it
Uh-huh.
would be Jazzy J or Africa Bambaataa. Somehow
Yeah.
and Red too, but the Zulu DJs somehow mix everything that I love together. Like it might be Creedence Clearwater
Mhm.
or the Stones, like Stevie Wonder, just, and it won't even be any Stevie Wonder song. It'll be Hey Love, which is my favorite. Like
Mhm.
somehow, especially Jazzy, he just can play whatever. And I'm just so happy. That's one of my favorite selectors,
Nice.
as well as amazing party rocker.
Sure. Yeah, those are great.
Yeah.
All great answers. What's the last great book you read or listened to?
All right. I read a lot of weird stuff. I read a lot of Stephen King.
Okay.
I'm reading him now. Greatest book though, I mean, religiously, of course, the Quran. But I read a lot of books on spirits and different kooky things
Okay.
that maybe not everybody else is interested in or reading. But
Nothing wrong with that.
yeah, but favorite author is usually Stephen King.
Mm.
Oh, wait, there was a book. It was not just The Orchardist, but there's a book called, I think it's called Overstory. And it's a story where the trees are the main characters. And
Okay.
you'd have to look up who wrote it, but it's such a beautiful story about how trees are around us, but we like take them for granted, and how they've got these underground root networks. And the stories are based on families that grew up around the tree
Oh, that's cool.
and people who are trying to save certain trees. So it's a really heavy, earthy book, just like The Orchardist is too, like about a guy that I don't think he can hear, but he has this apple orchard.
Wow.
It seems very slow moving, like, and it's back
Uh-huh.
in the day, like maybe in the 1800s or early 1900s, but they're really slow moving, peaceful books. And another one called The Story of, I want to say Edward Sawtell, or Sawtell's Dogs, Sawtalles. And
Mhm.
it's also another really fat book that's about these dogs that this person eventually bred, and the
Okay.
dogs are their own character, and you know what the dog is thinking too.
That's
So
interesting. That's
I
cool.
find them at thrift stores or wherever, but they're such good books that feel like soulfully nourishing. Like, wow,
Yeah.
like I'm so glad I read that long ass book.
That's amazing. I haven't read much Stephen King, but I read his memoir called On
Ooh.
Writing,
Uh-huh.
which, like, the first half of the book is his life story, and then the second half is him telling you about his philosophy about writing, and it was amazing.
He's brilliant.
Yeah.
If you follow, like, all of his books I love, especially Salem's Lot is my favorite vampire story. But if you follow him on Twitter, like, he was constantly trolling Trump, which was hysterical.
I'm sure.
So my Twitter feed like would be mostly like him and Bette Midler just going in, and it'd be hysterical. So yeah,
That's
follow
great.
him because he's a character.
That's hilarious. What movie do you think you've seen the most in your life?
I probably The Color Purple. Like,
Oh, okay.
once again, another earthy, soulful movie. But
It's a great movie though.
Yeah, I could probably quote it at this
That's
point.
not like mine. The ones I've seen the most are all a bunch of stupid comedies that they just come on and you're like, oh, I'll just watch this again, you know. The Color Purple, that's a legit movie.
If you want to make yourself cry, that would be like, if you just need to get it out, then you can watch The Color Purple. But there's so many good parts in it. And but lately, like, I was thinking about that this morning, is things that came out of the pandemic is we watch martial art movies all the time. We watch the Shaw Brothers. Now we're watching this, is it Ong Bak? It's
Ong Bak.
Yeah, heavy, crazy, wild stuff. and we don't even like movies with subtitles, but we watch these. We are just nonstop watching like Sleeping Fist and bizarre stuff where like a guy has a little person that he fights with, and he's on his shoulders, and they fight as a team, and just bugged out martial arts movies we've been watching nonstop.
That's great. I don't watch a lot of those movies, but I appreciate like the action comes first, and then they find a story that's really just an excuse for the action scenes and the choreography and the like, crazy fight scenes, and it's dope.
Yeah, everybody's not in on back, but these other ones, everybody's levitating. Like it's just it's just nuts. Like, and then sometimes it's like comedy. Like there's a one where they're talking about oh man, what did they call it? If it was spiritual boxing.
Okay.
And in this, they're just like all these, like, it almost looks like gang signs and hand signs, but they're controlling each other and throwing power through their hands.
So funny.
And it's so bugged out. But yeah, it's such a good thing to find these movies when, some content and, even English speaking movies are kind of boring lately,
Sure.
And who knows how we're going to be affected because of the movies that weren't made because it wasn't safe to make them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Who's somebody you haven't met that you've learned a lot from?
Oh man. I guess it could be any author. I can't think of someone off the top right now that would be that person. But it is weird to have like friendships with people that you haven't met yet that you're really cool with, But yeah, I can't.
Okay.
It would probably be in some other field. It wouldn't be in hip hop. It'd be some weird thing.
Well, because everybody in hip hop.
Yeah, I maybe it'd be the politicians. Maybe it'd be like people I follow, like Elon or Rashida or Bernie Sanders, who just fight for what's right regardless of the popular opinion. Like, and any activist, like I know I've met her before, but Linda Sarsour, Rosa Clemente, like people that just go hard, like that maybe have more bravery and courage than I do to be as out there and to put themselves at, the public opinion and the attacks and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, pretty much, it'd have to be any major activists, that
That's
are just,
great.
Yeah, fighting for humanity. Like, it's not about money. It's not about lining your pockets and all the politicians that do that at the sake of humanity, at the sake of their own souls. Like it's pretty scary what's going on. So anybody who's fighting for, the rights, that's it.
Nice. Last question. If I worked for you, what's something I would hear you say over and over?
My rants about double checking your work and perfectionism and how only people should be hired that have OCD issues.
Okay.
Like
you seem like attention to detail is high on your list.
It's so important. Can you imagine having a sloppy employee?
Oh yeah, I've had many.
Yeah, exactly. And it's maddening. You're like, how do
terrible.
Yeah, like, okay, first of all, even just when I'm writing to DJs, they'll read some of the stuff and not everything. And sometimes that's why they, they slam their foot in the door, or like whatever the word is, they don't succeed because they won't read for comprehension.
Right.
So I feel it's a disrespect that you take time to send someone stuff in the perfect wording that you can, and then they don't even bother to read it or get it. So anybody who doesn't pay attention to detail would not be my employee at all. Like I need you to be, you could smoke weed all day, that's whatever, as long as it doesn't affect your concentration and memory, you know what I mean? Fine. But it's me having to do other people's work over or repeat myself over and over.
Right. Yeah.
As an entrepreneur, you know that. Like you can't.
Yeah.
And it's your whole reputation, your whole integrity, everything.
Well, the way I tell people, we have, I have people like they emailed the information to a client and the client didn't read it, right? And I'm like, well, if it's important enough, then you need to call them and make sure they have that information. You need to like, don't, if all you want to do is point fingers and say you sent it, they didn't read it.
Yeah.
That's not the job.
No.
Like the job is to make this thing work.
Exactly.
And if you need them to read it, that's back on you.
Yeah, that's for a client though. Battle DJs that are just entering, like I'm not going to call 100 DJs to make sure they read it.
No, of course.
But clients definitely like, I'll call if my dude from Pioneer DJ isn't like answering back, I'll give him a call in a day. Exactly. I actually thought about that. Since we're here at a shop at Mile High DJ Supply. And having been working with all the companies in the industry and gear companies, especially, this is a perfect place for me. But you will not believe how many gear reps do not make phone calls.
Oh, I'm not surprised.
Like there's a guy, let's say ADJ, there's a rep there, he'll call once a week and he'll always get a sale. Mm-hmm. I was like, wow, could you imagine if all these other companies actually called and said, hey, you're like, this is me. This is Christy from so-and-so. This is the new controller I have in stock. I got these mixers coming out. Like something as simple as that. And that call is so crucial and they have no idea how many sales they're not getting or how someone who called you on the phone will get your business more than, it's interesting. Like,
yeah, I heard
follow-up is important.
I knew this guy was a sales coach and he told me that, on average, it takes 8 contacts to get a sale and most salespeople give up after 3.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. But that's the life we live, right? Is you can't give up.
Yeah. And there's a guy from Gemini, we were just talking about Gemini and they're still around and they make some cool stuff. Like they had this crazy speaker that was like, unfortunately it was just for a special company, but it was like camouflaged outdoors and it looked crazy. And we wanted that speaker, but we couldn't get it. But he will email like at least once or twice a month just to follow up. Like, hey, don't forget about us.
Yeah, that's what's up.
Smart.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, Christie Zee, it's so much fun talking to you. I appreciate you and all these great stories. It's definitely been too long, so hopefully we'll keep in touch better.
Definitely.
Than we have. Where should everybody be following? We should all be watching for the DMC and for Tools of War and for what?
Yeah, you can follow DMC. There's several handles, but DMC USA DJ Battles is where most people can find what I'm doing, as well as the world. I post world stuff there. And then DMCDJChamps.com is the main website for all of the battles this year. Tools of War jams on any social media. You can find out what Fable and I are up to. I was going to say this too, outside of everything else, like your stories about what your son says were some of my favorite reading. Like, and that's how I feel like it's interesting that you connect on things that aren't industry related, but you're like, this is your friend in the industry and his kid is saying some wild stuff and has interesting perspectives.
I'm
a fan of your son.
It's crazy. Thank you.
I'm a fan of your son, even though I don't know him.
That's amazing. Thank you for saying that. Well, this is so great. Thanks again. And let's do it again sometime, hopefully in person.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I hope I get to talk to you and find out all the stuff you're doing instead of it being focused on me.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
Hey, that was Christie Zee Pavon on Rebel Radio. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. Make sure you check out the DMC and check out Christie's Park Jams next time you're in New York if they're happening. We'll see what happens. Most importantly, come back next week for more Rebel Radio. Peace.